All right, what is happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Bucher's Patch of Boys Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Bucher. I'm joined, as always, by Kyle. Hi, Kyle.
Good morning. How's it going, guys? Excited to talk baseball.
Hell yeah. And we also have the man, the myth, Griffin. Welcome, Griffin, to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be the first morning guest you guys have ever had.
Yeah, welcome to AM Baseball, baby.
It's weird.
We're
10
recording
a.m.
at 6:15 a.m.
6:15 a.m. on a Sunday.
Yeah. We're going to break down the trades that have happened, and we're going to get into the keepers that have been announced. So let's jump right in, boys. I'm going to try to share my screen this time because I didn't do that last time. I mean, if you guys can see the league page.
Perfect.
Is there gonna be like a nice drop in there?
What?
Like a boo 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 boo. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, we'll edit that in. I thought you meant like, am I going to drop someone or something? My bad. Misunderstood what you're asking. All right, this is just this is drops. Look, here's all the nice drops, Griff.
Lots of drops.
Drops galore. All right, so we last had the seeker for Langford. Let's start with pretty big one here. Zach Gallen for Nolan Jones and Nolan Gorman. So Nolan squared, leaving Team Roman, going to McTaggart, and Brennan dealing away Zach Gallen. Griffin, you used to have Zach Gallen. What do you think?
Well, it's nice seeing, 4 Nolans traded this offseason. I think first impression, it makes a lot of sense. It looks just like the trades Brendan's been doing, trading away a more $20 higher tier keeper for a $1 cheaper guy. Before I go into it, do you guys want to guess how many innings Gallen threw last year? Or just keep that in mind while, just try to.
Should we guess?
Yeah, take a guess if you want.
Like 185, 190?
I think, yeah, north of 190.
He threw 240 across the playoffs and regular season.
Wow.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, that is a lot of innings.
That is a lot of innings.
So I think it makes sense for both sides. I think Roman has a lot of $1 guys who, wants to get a more upper tier guy, and he's getting kind of an undervalued, Nolan Jones breakout last year. I'm kind of mad about Nolan Jones because I bid $50 and Roman bid $100.
Ooh.
I got Jake McCarthy instead, and we all know how that turned out. So
you got the next Trey Turner there.
I was about to say it turned out very well for you. You got
you literally got Trey Turner, man.
Basically.
So Griff, before we finish with your analysis, you make a good point, and I know that about the innings. I thought he threw way less innings than that. Because Kyle and I talked a little bit about this when it happened. I'm curious, do you think there is a lot of surplus value with Gallen where he is right now? Do you think he's like an okay value, a great value, maybe losing?
Oh, yeah. There's quite a bit. He's right there with Luis Castillo, Kevin Gausman,
okay.
maybe below Corbin Burns now, but
like a low top 10 pitcher or a mid top 10 pitcher.
Yeah, so I think there's no doubt value at $21 for Gallen. So
there's obviously a lot of value with Jones and Gorman. I mean, the two of them, Jones especially.
Yeah, and Jones is just such a question mark. Can he hit 290 again? I think his BABIP was like 400, but he's so fast. He hits the ball hard, so it fits in with the $1 lottery tickets Brendan's going for. So I think it makes sense both sides.
For sure, and course helps that too with the high BABIPs. What do you think, Kyle? Though too, I didn't mean to jump over you there. I know we talked a little bit about it. That doesn't really help the pod. Didn't hear it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Griffin, I think the tidbit you shared on Gallen is really appealing. That Gallen is such a volume play. I thought he was close to 200, but 240 is a lot. So, I Nick kind of suggested this, but I still really like Brendan's side of this deal. I know this is kind of what Brendan has been doing consistently, but to me, this trade kind of solidifies his strategy. I had been a little bit confused about some of the moves, but I really like Nolan Jones. I know he got pretty lucky last year, but I feel like I do believe in what he's doing. I think I like Gorman a good bit more than Nick, just based on our conversations. And also sounds like I probably like Gallen a little bit less than you guys. So I think everything you said is reasonable. I think Gallen probably is consensus, top 10 or so, but I would sell that. So, just for that reason, I definitely lean Brendan's side. I think for Roman, it's an interesting move because from what I remember, he actually has quite a bit of pitching. So I was kind of surprised to see him pay up for that.
I agree with you. I think you're right. And I'll pull up his team real quick while you're talking.
Yeah, so I was kind of surprised to see him pay up a premium for someone like Gallon. Even if you love Gallon, like at consensus, I would much prefer to have two young guys that have the ceilings that Jones and Gorman do. So personally, I thought it was a little bit one-sided.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's one side. So this is a pretty good take. It sounds like we all sort of feel differently. I think I slightly lean towards the side getting Gallon, just because when you have someone who is, I would probably say like the 7th or 8th best pitcher, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower, depending on where you have him personally. Which sounds like we all sort of agree with. You probably sell him as you don't think he might necessarily do it again, Kyle, but you still think he's good. I think he's close to a blue chipper. He's not quite that, but I think he is close to it. And even though I think there's a ton of surplus value with Jones, especially like the BABIP is lucky, but Coors is the best place to have a high BABIP. Like I think he's going to continue that. It's interesting as you were talking about, or as we're talking about the Gallon thing too, because I know that includes playoffs, and they made it to the World Series. They were in the playoffs for a long time. Pitchers are so tough, man, because I feel like talking about it, like I love that he threw 240 because he's capable of throwing 240 in one side, but then I'm also like, ooh, he's probably gonna break down because he's threw 240. He's probably gonna get like Tommy John now. I hope I didn't just jinx him, but like every pitcher is always like one pitch away from that. So I don't know. If he had never thrown more than 160, I'd say, oh, he can't go deep into games. He can't go deep into the season. It's very fickle. And I just bring that up because that makes me maybe reconsider my side as you're talking, Kyle. I think you're making a pretty good point too, that if it's close, maybe you go to the position players a little bit safer. I do lean though slightly towards Gallon, I think. And then looking at Roman's team, dude's assembled quite the rotation here. You got Zach Wheeler, Yuri Perez,
Well, Wheeler can't be kept.
Gallon.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Wheeler can't be kept. He's gonna have to drop him because he was picked up like.
Oh, I'm glad you said that then. Well, that's an important thing you said. I didn't know that. I'm glad you said that.
I didn't know that either. That probably changes things a little bit for me. I assumed he'd keep Wheeler. I didn't know the timing on that.
Yeah, so I'll add two things with the Gallon. I meant that to be like scared of him pitching 240 innings like that deep.
Yeah.
Like I doubt he would go over 180 again, just due to such a big workload last year. But 180 is like still the best you can project for most pitchers. And also I feel like Nolan Jones is like about probably a hard player to trade too, because there's probably guys who love him and probably people who hate him. So just getting fair value for him is probably kind of difficult. So moving off of that lottery ticket for a more stable piece, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good point. Parsing out what is fair value is probably not the easiest thing in the world to do with him. And that's I just saw that like a meme where it's the fairly unattractive, heavier set guy, and then on the bottom it's a really handsome guy, and they're both talking to a woman at the workplace. And the heavier set guy's like, "Hey, Janice," and she's like, "HR, help." And then in the bottom, the handsome guy's like, "Hey, sweet body," or whatever, and she's like, "Hey, oh, I love you." And I'm thinking that's like Griffin talking about he's thrown 100 or 240 innings versus me saying he's thrown 240 innings. I'm like, "Oh, look, he can do it again." You're like, "Ooh, he's gonna break down." But all right, I feel like that's really good.
Cheeks Gallon.
Yeah, exactly. Sweet ass Gallon, baby. Well, apparently Brendan also didn't even like Nolan Gorman that much because he immediately then traded Nolan Gorman for Noelle Marte. Charlie Brown, man, making a lot of trades this offseason. That dude just trades and trades and trades.
He's just a churner. I feel like that's kind of the reputation he's built up.
Churny Brown is what we're calling him this year, I think.
I like it.
What do you think, though?
If you want to compete this year, I actually kind of want Gorman, but I mean, in our league, I kind of like having Marte. I think this is a pretty fair trade for both sides. I mean, Marte has been so young at every level, and so I think a lot of times the hype has kind of subsided on Marte because he's played well, but not like a sensational prospect like I think he has been for so long. But I think he performed well when he came up last year, and I think he'll continue to do that. I think he's the third base guy, so pretty helpful. Yeah, I mean, I think it's even. I don't really have much to say there. I think again, Brendan just continues to get these rookies. So I mean,
yeah, Brendan's made a real youth movement this all season.
Yeah,
very concerted effort.
I was pretty surprised about that because I thought he had one of the best offenses, and I mean, if things work out his way, he only needs 2 or 3 to hit. 2 or 3 of these rookies, he can drop guys who maybe don't work out, or maybe they all hit and he just rakes us all this season. But it does seem like a high risk, high reward move. And if you're confident in your pitching, which if you're Brendan, maybe you should be, it could play out pretty well. But it's probably not what I would do in his situation. But I also haven't built a dynasty in our league like he has, so we'll see.
I feel like you're making a point I agree with too. That's I think of like Wyatt Langford and Marte and all these other young guys he's trading for. I don't know which one it's going to be. I mean, you count Jackson Holiday and Jackson Trio in this too. He has all these young prospects who are just getting up or about to be up. I feel like probably a year from now, 1 or 2 of them are going to be like top 5 keepers overall in the league. And probably like the other like 4, there's like 1 or 2 useful ones and the other ones just like aren't anything. So that's just kind of what happens to prospects. I feel he's going to have a couple good values, 1 superstar, 2 superstars, and like half of them just don't pan out. And I think he's probably just taking like a volume approach to top prospects, which is a pretty good way to do it. If you're going to get like half the top 10 prospects, basically, your hit rate's going to be pretty solid. He's done a good job assembling that. And he probably just is thinking, if I'm guessing from his perspective, I'll get 1 or 2 of the best keepers, especially with the keeper format reshaping. You really want those cheap guys for the first couple of years, because that's the only way it's still the same as it's been historically. What do you think of the Griffin? We didn't really, my bad. I didn't mean to jump in before I let you throw your opinion in. You feel strongly one way?
At first I looked and I think it is pretty fair. It definitely fits both teams. It's like Brendan wants the young, $1 22-year-old, and then Charlie wants the big mashers. He has like Jake Berger, him. It really fits with his team. Like just
the old 23-year-old.
Yeah, going 24. So it's like, I do think
past his prime.
It is interesting though. No, I think Marte and Gorman have like the same ADP at this point, and it's like Marte plays in Cincinnati, he's younger, so higher upside. Gorman, wouldn't be surprised if he hits 35 homers, so.
Yeah, I was making the joke about being 23. I feel like you're right about that. I feel like Gorman, just because he's played a couple seasons, he's definitely not like a finished product, but I feel like I sort of know what I'm getting, where he probably won't be an amazing batting average, but he'll give you good power. And I also do think you're right about with Cincinnati. I don't know which one, almost like Brand's approach to, it seems like the prospects in my mind. Cincinnati's infield's going to be weird with like Candelario and then all the amazing guys they already had, or like the at least tantalizing guys they already had. I don't know if they're all amazing. Like I could definitely see Marte having an amazing first 2 or 3 weeks, just playing all year. I could also see him being like a utility guy if like Jonathan India gets off to a hot start, if like Candelario's in there every day, Ellie's in there every day, Spencer Steer plays some first base, McLean's in there every day. Yeah, it's like very crowded. So I feel like if he has a rough start, it's going to be hard to like get everyday at bats. Whereas Gorman, I don't think it's necessarily easy in St. Louis, but like he did it last year mostly. And I feel like there's definitely safety there in a way you don't necessarily have with Marte. But Marte's a higher upside, which is like Kyle said, what Brandon's been doing with basically all of his moves.
Yeah, with Marte having that hamstring injury, like it wouldn't surprise me at all if he started the year in the minors and
Very true.
Either Ellie goes cold or Candelario gets hurt or there's some space, then they call him up. So
yeah,
with Brendan's strategy, there are going to be a couple guys who probably start the year in the minors. 2 or 3 of them. So, but we'll get into
since it's mostly the Brendan podcast too. I am curious. I agree with Kyle where I don't dislike the strategy necessarily, but I agree with you, Kyle. It's not what I would do either if I had Brendan's team that has been so dominant the last 2 years. What do you think, Griffin? Is this sort of the way you would approach? He's not rebuilding, but I feel like he is definitely retooling in a way that like is very proactive and very aggressive.
Yeah. Do you want to segue into the keepers with that?
Yeah, we can do that.
Since
left time.
Let's stop discussing him then and discuss me because I went first. I'll go to my roster.
Segue.
I feel like it was a pretty seamless one. What do you guys think about Brendan's choices? Now let's talk about me.
Here's a segue. It's Nick time.
Yep. You know who loves riding a segue is me. How's my team? No, but I mean, what did you guys think? We won't spend too much time just because no one wants to hear me talk about my guys. Did you think I made any decisions you wouldn't have made? Do you think? And I can go up and so I kept the 4 pitchers: Cole, Gilbert, Steer, and Strider, and then mostly bats. But I used almost all of my budget. I only have, I think it's $22 for the auction. Let me check. Or 28, pardon me. So I have $28 in the auction for, I think it's 13 spots. So I'm getting a lot of $1 and $2 players.
So I think there's only one thing I would have done different, and it's kind of small. I probably wouldn't have kept Bregman, and I probably would have kept Cal Raleigh, but
I mean, that was basically what it came down to.
Yeah. And I remember on that last day it was. So it's like, I do think Bregman's going to be like a nice, solid, 30-year-old guy who you buy low and it's like, oh, wait, he's still like really good, and he's
Yeah.
going to be back to the value he had before and kind of raises your floor with like the amount of power first, questionable batting average guys you have. He's going to be like a nice, solid stabilizer. So can't really hate that. And with Cal Raleigh, that would have fit in too with more high homers, low average guys. So it would have been tough to fit him in, I think. So that does make sense. Other than that, I don't think there are any big surprises.
What about you, Kyle?
Um, yeah, I feel like there's a few things, and this is maybe like speaking a little bit too much on how I think you're thinking about it, Nick. But like the Altuve trade for Mookie Betts, I think was a big one in that I think it was a fair trade, but your side of that also fixed into your ability to keep Lindor, which I think is a really important piece. Like I really like Lindor this year. So I think your ability to keep him in this scenario is pretty important. Secondly, like I'll take a completely different stance from Griffin. Like I like Cal Raleigh, but I actually like kind of taking those $1 catchers. And if you just compare the value of Raleigh versus a replacement catcher, I kind of like to have the extra like $5 or whatever it would be. So you know, I like the decision to keep Bregman. If you plug in the projections for Bat X or Ariel Cohen's projections into like the auction calculator, and plug in our rules, you'll probably get a few dollars less than 34 for Bregman. I take a similar approach and like to fold in some of my own logic. So for me, $34 is pretty much at cost for Bregman. I think to lock up your positions and then also have someone as good as Bregman as utility, and then also just roster flexibility, subbing in guys. I like it. If I were you, I would have kept Bregman. I would have cut Raleigh. And then the pitchers, I don't remember who you cut. So, I mean, I think your starting four is
They
obviously.
were pretty easy, honestly. I didn't really have any, in
Yeah.
my opinion, any like tough decisions to make there.
I think
I mean,
Tanner Scott was like maybe
Yeah,
if
actually, it's funny you said he was the one where
if
he just got
if
so
you
many strikeouts. I thought about it, and he
in
is
like,
technically sort of a closer, so he might be valuable next year too.
but
yeah,
it's like
Tanner Scott's probably one guy that you probably star and hope to get him for $1 or $2 in the auction, because I
Yeah,
have my eye on him too. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, dude, like I know we're gonna segue to Brendan here, and I'd like to get your thoughts on your team too, Nick. But and maybe it's just I don't have the experience you and Brendan have, but for me, having someone like Junior Caminero, like that's the approach that I want in terms of having some exposure to youth. Like I think to get all of the prospects on your team, it might work out great, and Brendan might smoke all of us, like I said, but it seems risky. And I think you're exposing yourself to a really high ceiling player. And I think there's two scenarios with Caminero. Like with Tampa Bay, he might not play, opening day. But guess what? That's great because it opens up your roster. You can throw him in the minor spot. You can then
Yeah.
take a dart throw on maybe a young pitcher, or you can fill in, some garbage replacement player on offense. Sometimes it's nice when you have those early stretches where you get to throw a player on, either IL or the minor spots because it gives you the ability to take chances and pick up guys that maybe will pan out. So I don't know. I like having a couple, but if you have too many, it kind of stifles your opportunity.
Yeah. I think you're both. I mean, I won't say too much. I think Griffin's right in a vacuum. I almost kept Cal Raleigh too. I think he's a surplus value at $6 because I do think he's like the fifth or sixth best catcher when I looked at it. I think though, when I think about our league specifically, it's interesting because I feel like some people, I don't know if anybody actually cares about it. When you look at like the ADP and stuff, when you look at like NFBC ADP, a lot of ADP that's out there right now is for two catcher leagues. So catchers are artificially high. A lot of our leagues already got a catcher or two they like. I think there's probably either 16 or 17 catchers I think are all within 1, 2, or 3 tiers of each other. Ultimately, I think I can probably get a catcher who's close to him or him again for around that value just because no one's going to need two catchers. But I think he's a surplus value at that. I made the decision to go with Bregman, and it was hard. I really tried to trade him or someone else the final couple days before because I think he is actually not only just okay at 34, but a little bit of a surplus value. And it came down to me thinking about the fact that I feel very confident that looking at everybody's rosters and then looking at like the top like 60 or so players, Bregman probably would have been like the top, or like not the top, like I don't know, like the 7th best player available. I don't think I'd be able to buy him back if I threw him back out there, or anybody better than him. And I feel like everybody who's really good is just going to go to like Raymond, who's going to have all his money, or one of these teams that does not have anybody on their team. So I feel like even though I don't necessarily want another third baseman, since I have Caminero, Royce Lewis, and I already clogged my first there with Pete and Vlad, in my mind, it was just like, I probably won't be able to get a player as good as Bregman if I make not this move as easily. And Kyle's absolutely right too. I mean, I think I'm paying too much probably for Lindor slightly, but he went 30-30 last year. He's one of my top like 3 or 4 shortstops, maybe 5 if you really don't like him. And I feel like he's just also someone I wouldn't be able to get back if I let him go. So you both basically said what I was thinking. Cal Raleigh was almost to keep anyway. Tanner Scott was actually a thought. Could call Griff on that. Let's go to Brennan's team.
Real quick, can I add 2 more things? Just
Yeah.
if in our league right now, Cal Raleigh, I mean, this is based on Fantrax projections, but he's projected as the number 2 catcher above Yamamoto and Adley. But I mean, that's also you have to buy into 32 homers and but also we really didn't talk about how good Nick's pitching staff is. Like you have number 1 to like 15 and like 25, basically. Like that's scary.
Thanks, dude. I hope so. They're pitchers, so probably have to get Tommy John by like May.
Well, and guys, pitching is at a premium.
Yeah, pitching is at a premium this year because I have good pitchers. I'm going to say that. I've been saying all offseason pitching is going to be really hard to get this year. All right, let's cover Brennan's team because he, like we were saying with the trades, we definitely took slightly different approaches. I feel like, which is good. Like Brennan's zigging a little bit here. Where I feel like I would have zagged or Kyle said he would have zagged is good for the league. I don't know why he's not loading. All right, here we go. What?
That's Stan, I think. Yeah, that's Stan.
All right, so here's Brennan's team.
Brennan looks good.
This is who Brennan gets to keep. Why did it go to Stan's team? Sorry, guys. All right, hold on. While I'm waiting for it to pull him up.
So I can get started on Brendan's team.
Yeah, just start talking Brendan while it loads.
So I actually love what Brendan's doing because I feel like he kind of did what I did last year, where he might know that that's Roman's team. Where
What the fuck?
Where
Why is that happening?
It's Brendan in disguise. He's trying to confuse us early on in the season.
Am I like disabled? I'm clicking Brendan, right? You guys are watching me do it. Here he is.
Here's Brendan.
It's gonna be Dom's team now or something, dude. Hey, there's
Yeah,
actually
nice.
there's the charm. Got him. All right. Sorry, guys. So just real quick, I'll show the pitchers before then I'll go back up. So pitchers are Burns, Green, Reagans, Rodon, and Verlander. And then here's the offense. Good, Griff, sorry.
So yeah, I feel like he was doing what I kind of did last year, where he wants to compete, but he also realizes his core was kind of like not built for the long term. So you can tell he really wanted to lean into, rebuilding, but still wants to stay competitive. So he has like 2 first-round hitters, boring, steady Andy Diaz, like number 2 catcher William Contreras, and then Taylor Ward kind of steady, and then just all these prospects. So you can tell he wants to finish near the top. But he does have some flexibility. Like if he does start to go down, he could trade Aaron Judge and Soto and like really go for the rebuild. But, I do think he's kind of playing both sides right now, which is pretty similar to what I think I did starting in like May last year. So
I think he's giving himself a lot of outs. That's a good point. What about you, Kyle? You think a sort of a Griffin where he's taking a good approach to having multiple outs here? You think there's keeper decisions you would have made differently, or?
Yeah, I mean, nothing too crazy. And I think I've already shared my thoughts on the strategy overall. I think just a couple keepers I was surprised about. Maybe I'm just the low guy on catchers, but even at $11, I'm not super convinced I'd want Contreras. And then if Taylor Ward, he traded for. I think there's surplus value if you compare to projections, but personally, I'm just not super in on Ward this year. Even if if he plays to his projections, I think it's fine, but I don't know. I'm a little sketched out for some reason. And then on the pitching side of things, again, like similar to Nick's team, I think just really good overall. I think he's paying a premium. We talked about Hunter Green last time. So yeah, nothing crazy here. Verlander, obviously, the news recently came out that he's coming into camp with a little soreness. I think there's a lot of speculation. Maybe that's just him saying, "I'm not really going to do much in in the spring, like just save my arm," versus something a little bit more serious, like Radish, unfortunately. So who knows? I think it's a good setup. I think he's, like Griffin said, primed to play both sides, like primed to potentially win, or if things don't pan out in the first month or so, he has the flexibility to trade away.
Yeah. And I'm sort of joking when I say, but I'm actually not joking fully, just because we have acknowledged we have a couple Yankees fans in here. I mean, you have Soto and Judge as your guys you could trade if you end up being like fifth or sixth midway through the year and you want to try to rebuild fully. It's crazy though how impressive this is, man. This guy won it 2 years ago and was second this past year. Great job, Brennan. I know you just traded a bunch to get him, but Holiday, Chirrillo, Wyatt Langford. This is like three of the top like 4 or 5, maybe three of the top 3, depending like what list you look at, prospects. That's
And then
crazy. He has that.
you also have like lottery tickets and Colt Keith and Marte, but they're going to hit
Yeah,
right now. It's like you'll know by midseason, is Colt Keith and are they the real deal? So you don't
exactly.
have to wait and like clog up a spot with them. So like
Exactly.
even if Langford's down, like you're not blocking too many spots.
I agree. I think I would have. I think I agree with Kyle exactly about Taylor Ward, where I don't know if I necessarily think he's worth 11, but I also wouldn't cut him for 6. So I think you're making the right move to keep him. I think he's going to be close to 11. And the only one I am surprised by, honestly, is Rodon. Or Rodon, however you say his name. I think there's probably more chances than not that he is worth more than $16 this coming year. But it's just interesting to me that you would feel motivated to move Gallon, but keep Rodon at similar price. I know what Gallon's like 21.
Yeah. I
Obviously, you're
think
getting a lot more for Gallon. That's why it's not that simple. But to me, I don't know. If you're trying to keep your costs lower, and this would have helped you keep Jose Ramirez, so I know you have to make the moves you make. I just talked to my own team about having to make the best decision I could with what I had. Um, I'm just curious on the Rodon one personally. Otherwise, I think it's basically what I would have done too.
it's funny you brought up Ramirez. I actually meant to bring that up. I thought Brendan was scheming to keep Ramirez.
Me too.
I thought he was trying to pick up all these cheap, high upside players, maybe get rid of one more blue star or blue chip player like Soto, maybe trade away Judge in order to keep Ramirez. I don't know. So I was just wrong. Obviously, the offense looks great, but to
No, I
say
think you're right, man.
to
I
say
think
he's
sorry,
better
go
off,
ahead.
yeah, but to say he's better off today than he was at first day of the end of the season, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, because he already had Jackson Holiday and Jackson Churia.
Yeah. So if you cut, I think I would have probably kept Contreras. He's my number 2 catcher, but it's close. Again, like I said with Raleigh, I think he's like a top 5 one. I didn't keep him for 6. But if you throw back Contreras and you throw back Rodon, that gets rid of what, 27, brings you down to a little under 250. Yeah, it's still you still really can't keep Ramirez. Probably it's all $1 players after that. I don't know. Maybe you could. I'm just thinking about like if I would consider doing something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think you can. I also remember Brendan last year like did really well getting like $10, $15 players in the draft, like
Yeah,
Kershaw. I think he got Diaz in the draft, so I
Yeah,
think he's probably gonna do the same thing, maybe.
yeah.
good
He
point.
obviously does his homework. He'll get good values.
Do you guys think? I think Corbin Burns, like of all players this offseason, probably increased his value the most in our league. Like going to a good park in Baltimore and also going to Baltimore in like a Baltimore centric league. Like
Yeah,
he probably just shot up more than
very
anyone.
helpful for him. Yeah,
Yeah, you're right. 100%.
and
And
I
this
mean, he was also great in the second half. Like he looked incredible in the second half of the season. He wasn't terrible in the first half, but he was back to like Cy Young Corbin Burns in the second half of the year.
this is also like the opposite of my pitching staff, where it's like you could see this like up or down. Like there's so much variance with Hunter Green could be amazing, and he could also like totally run your weight ratios. So
Yeah.
a lot of variance just with
You
the
know
whole.
who else loves variance is Kyle. Let's look at his keepers. How about that for a segue? I
So
can't wait to have Stan's team again when it comes up. Nope, we got you this time. Nice. All right, so Griff, you go first because we're gonna have Kyle talk first about his team. Did anything Kyle did surprise you?
um
I'll show you his pictures too. It's just Shane Baz, Mason Miller, Tyler Glass now.
not too much. I think you can tell you wanted the high end players. That's why you have like 3 first rounders. with Betts, Freeman, and Carroll. So you can kind of see you wanted the top end talent, and then got kept some guys in the middle. I think Randy Rosarena at 49 was someone originally I was like, would I have done that? I think he's borderline, but I do think he probably does have enough value that it's not worth taking the chance in the draft with him. So I also like how you filled out your outfield totally. Like, I think outfield's kind of shallow this year. And I say that because my outfield is full and I'm trying to throw a smoke screen. But, I do think it is nice to have a full outfield. And I think your pitching staff is like so scary.
Outfield is shallow and pitching's at a premium. Those are the things we're saying. I actually agree with that a lot, Griff. I only have 2 outfielders and I wish I had more. I think it's going to be a tough year in the outfield. I'm jealous you guys having your outfields full with these guys you like. And I also agree with you about Randy Rosarena. I feel like a Rosarena Kyle is probably really similar. Like, he's 15 or 20 picks better than Bregman. Different skill set than Bregman. But I imagine you probably felt similar where it's like, he's probably around where I take him-ish. But I doubt if I throw him back, I'll get someone as good or better with that money I save.
I think it was the exact same scenario. Yeah. I mean, I played around with dropping Randy a lot, but I just decided, like, kind of what Griffin said, outfielders I think are going to go so quickly in the draft.
Agreed.
I kind of looked at who I thought would be out there, and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to keep a Rosarena. I don't really need a big piece on offense from here, but my whole strategy this year is kind of zigging while others zag. I agree with Griffin. I mean, we were talking about Gallen at like 240 innings. Like, we'll see if any of these guys get 100 innings.
We'll see if all 3 get 240.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely a high risk. And I know we have less than a minute here, but
I'll say no. Yeah.
I'm kind of doing the anti-Griffin with pitching. I think I'll be able to capture some value as pitchers get dropped throughout the year. And so that's kind of the bet I'm trying to make. I'm trying to lock down offense. I don't think I'm better than others at finding offensive talent, but maybe I can find a couple diamonds on the pitching side of things.
You're like millennial Griffin, where he didn't do any pitching, instead of Gen Z Griffin, where it's all pitching.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not anti-Griffin. That's what I've done like
It's like the original
5 out of
Griffin.
the 6 years.
All right. Well, yeah, Kyle's right too. We're about to get out of here. We'll send an ad and come right back.
See you soon.
I can't hang up.
I'm Michael Cera, and I'm pleased to announce that this is my cream. CeraVe. Oh, you didn't know? Generosity. The truth has been hiding in plain sight. I am CeraVe. Can human skin truly be this moisturized? Oh. Yeah. Wow. Let my cream hydrate you. I like this. Skin. 3 essential ceramides. All-day hydration. I'm telling them our story. CeraVe. Developed with Michael Cera. V. We like? I just think it would be really nice if people think that I make this. So, that's my thing.
We are back.
Welcome back. You got me, Kyle, and Griffin's wife. What? We got catfished.
Sorry, it's me.
All right. Phew. I was worried. You see my screen?
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. Can you let me share screen, Kyle?
I said, please don't do that.
I was like, I'm not letting you steer anymore.
Got him.
Here, I'll try to share.
Okay.
That'll probably be faster than me trying to figure out.
That's fine.
And good news, we're back to Jack's team. We want to look at Jack.
Yep. When in doubt, look at Mark's dad's team. No, I was gonna say, while you're pulling your own team up, Kyle, I love personally, even though we were just joking that they won't throw 240 innings combined, that's probably not actually true. And if like Glasnow specifically stays healthy, he's gonna probably be like the SP3. But Mason Miller, maybe a bullpen guy. I feel like if I was trying to find my archetype as a pitcher for the next like Spencer Strider, who maybe like throws 2 or 3 innings a bunch of times and then eventually maybe starts again in the second half of the year if he doesn't break himself. Love Mason Miller for that. Are you sort of rooting with me if he's on your team? I'm assuming you are, that like that's kind of what he does, or do you want him to be deployed differently? Would you like him to start from the jump? What would you want?
I've been really confused this offseason listening to some of the podcasts out there. People clamoring and people excited for the fact that he's going to be a relief pitcher this year. And I think it's much ado about nothing. I think people are just going to say they're excited if there's a change. Like, I think it's crazy. I think I want exactly what you described. Best scenario is Mason Miller goes out. He's one of the best relief pitchers in baseball this year. He's got the stuff for it. He just needs to prove he could stay healthy. So my hope is that he does that. And maybe he gets traded to a contender partway through the season because the A's are really bad. And then the following season, he's a starter. So that's kind of what I want. I think either way, I think he can be an elite closer. So while I want him to be a starter in 2025, if he ends up being a closer, we know that we voted to change the rules. So if he ends up getting a bunch of saves in 2025, I know that that's pretty helpful as well. So my thought is, hey, elite closer, I might be able to squeeze one more year out of him. If he's a starter, maybe he's like one of my guys for quite a while. That's kind of my thought process.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you got
I
Griffin.
think it helps. I think it helps being saves plus holds this year, so you can squeeze, the like average reliever value at worst out of them, and then next year again it could be starter, it could be closer. So
yeah,
I think he is like a good lottery ticket to have in our league.
Yeah, I think the same way we were talking about Brendan. If this was poker, having a lot of outs with having all those young, amazing prospects, then also like a couple big guys like Judge and Soto. Miller's got a lot of outs to be valuable. He could be like Griffin said, or you said, as a traditional reliever, traditional closer, traditional 8th inning guy, and be really valuable. But I think like what probably is an outcome that would be great is if he just does Spencer Strider. That'd be pretty sick.
Real quick before we move on, I also
Yeah.
like the 3 boring outfielders and Teoscar, Seiya, and Jorge Soler. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like it's hard to get much value for them. People don't like boring, but they're going to be just across the board solid contributors who you don't really have to question all year. So
They're my
Yeah.
hitting archetype. Kyle's just doing my archetypes I like. The boring guys with power who aren't like prospects really. And Seiya specifically, fuck you, Kyle, dude. I remember trying to pick him up and you beat me by a little bit of money for him. I remember texting you that day and being like, dude, Seiya's like a good guy. He shouldn't be on the waiver wire. And you're like, yeah, that's why I picked him up, dummy. And I was like, all right, well, I should have picked him up for more money.
It's
Yeah.
I
funny.
think he's awesome.
It's funny you say that. I mean, I got lucky with Soler, but Suzuki's hands down my favorite of the 3 too. And I mean, Zach cut him. I think honestly for decent reason. Zach was competing and Suzuki was really, really bad the first half. I think he just needed a change of scenery. And when he hopped on my squad, he said, "Oh, like I guess this feels more like home." Started playing pretty well down the stretch. No,
Once he got in a better clubhouse, he was willing to play harder.
But I mean,
Well-
I think we all know everything under the hood for Suzuki looks really good, and I think he's primed to break out. So sorry, Griff. It sounded like you had something.
Well,
there.
it wasn't Zach who dropped him for you to pick up, because I picked him up the next day, and then I dropped him 5 days later.
Oh,
Yep.
correction.
So he did go to a less toxic clubhouse, I guess. But yeah,
Why did you rent him for a day?
Wait, what?
Why did you rent him for a day?
When I rented him for 5 days, I thought he was going to be like a good keeper, but I just had
What
too many.
changed over
outfielders.
5 days?
I think it was him or Jake McCarthy probably. So I was like,
Oh, well, that's next Trey Turner.
so obviously got to drop this bum.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Nah, I agree with everything else. So generally, Kyle, I think it makes sense.
But glad to get your all's stamp of approval on all my pitchers. Thank you. I think that's one that I've checked off for the draft. So I think
It's at a premium this year. Watch out.
Looking for more offense,
It's at a premium.
Cool.
Let's look at
The sink.
Ray Sink.
I like the artwork this year.
Thank you. My wife did
Yeah,
it.
well done, dude.
Yeah, she
It looks like nightmare fuel.
she actually did one that was like even better, and the face like blended better. But since it's such a small icon, it just didn't look as good. But
Looks like he's like looking through me.
Is there a way on Fantrax to view that as a bigger picture? I
Nope.
I don't think there is.
No.
So it's like all this work for waste.
I mean, we
I
can
love that
blow it
Griffin
up.
Griffin was like the one Nick's got of those guys, and I was like, it's me and Kyle.
Yeah,
On your
Knicks.
phone, it's like
Because you can't see that. Yeah, you can't tell who that is, and it's sideways.
at least on ESPN, like you could actually see it blown up.
You could
so,
zoom
like,
in a
the
little
work
bit, yeah.
is kind of worth it, but
Right.
now you have like 20 pixels.
Yeah. All right, Kyle, what do you think of Griffin's keepers?
I mean, I kind of said this on last episode. I know there's several things on the keepers that I got confused about something recently, and I know Griffin didn't expect to keep Cowser, so I'll punt on that. But in terms of offense, I think Griffin has one of the best offenses, just in terms of filling out the outfield, kind of like what I did, but maybe even more elite talent. He has Shohei. I know at the end of last season we were joking about Shohei, like, and I think Freddie Freeman too. Like, what could possibly make them better? I mean, we know that Shohei.
We found it.
Yeah, we know he's not going to pitch this year, but I mean, like, his runs and RBIs are just going to be insane this year. I mean, I think well over what you're seeing here. So, I don't know.
Yeah, sub 100 in both is pretty shocking to me, actually. They must think maybe he won't play every day at first. Maybe he'll get eased in.
And that could
491
happen.
at bats.
Yeah,
They got so.
That's true too.
Yeah, I mean, pretty awesome. I mean, I think the only thing to nitpick on offense is I was a little surprised about Crawford. I do like Crawford, but like, could you get him for a little bit less than $6?
Similarly, you didn't probably think you were keeping Crawford, right?
Yeah, so
I'm sorry. I didn't know he was in the same.
No, he
trade.
didn't say that. I just know because I talked to him about it. That's all.
I'll drop that.
So I'll just add color real quick, and then you guys can go back to it. But yeah, I was gonna keep Glaber and cut Torres and cut JP, but since I had to keep him, I made the tough decision. I was like, I'll just keep Crawford. But you guys can.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think Glaber is another one, and the Alex Bregman. Like, he's a little bit cheaper version of Bregman, and a much cheaper version of Randy, where it's like he's probably at cost. How much money do you have left at the very bottom?
50.
Griff?
I'll have 55
Bucks.
after I cut Cowser.
Okay. Yeah. I think I for what it's worth too, would do what you're doing with Cowser. I think I would also keep JP for the 6. I think he's worth it. It's probably about what he's worth, but he's not special. And I would cut Cowser. Other than that, then, man, I don't know. I love the Marcell Ozuna.
Yeah.
Kyle's right. Your offense, dude, is just you probably have the best or the second best offense going into the. Just it's also like filled out. Like I know you don't have much money left, but you can really just pay whatever you want for whatever the corner infielder or bench guy you fall in love with, or you can just do it where you get like wait till the end and buy a couple of, like, the injured guys who are gonna be really good values for next year, or the prospect we forget about. You've got some outs too.
I mean, sometimes it's even better to go in knowing you're going to get some kind of trash replacement player here. Just it'll allow you, some space to turn when, you find like the next big pickup, some guy we've never heard of who's really good this year. So
I feel really confident. I think you said it, Kyle, about Caminero on my team a little bit ago. Not for him specifically, but I do think it's really valuable because I am also very attached to my players I take in the spring. Early in the year, it's hard to cut them. And I think part of what I like is not necessarily always doing a stars and scrubs thing, but I think an untalked about benefit of stars and scrubs is that when you have scrubs, you're less inclined to hold them too long and miss the hot waiver pickup who ends up being amazing. And I feel like I've had years where I just don't get any of the good waiver pickups early. And it's usually because I have a bunch of like 225 ADP guys who I like but don't love. And I feel like, oh, I can't cut them in April. And I just miss out on everybody good. So at least kind of like you're saying with this, like, if Griffin gets like a $2 corner infielder, you get like, I don't know, Rowdy Tellez type from last year, or even worse than that. Okay, whatever.
Dude, I couldn't agree more. I feel like if this were an AL or NL only league and things were just not as deep in terms of like value out on the free agency wire, I think I would try to play for complete balance. And I think every single one of my players would be like $12,
Yeah.
But that's not the case. I think stars and scrubs is often a winning approach for exactly what you just described, because it allows you to pick up these guys as they emerge. And then, hey, they don't work out, drop them.
Yep.
But unless we add some more strategy next year and make the minimum bid, like, I don't know,
$1,000.
Yeah. So one fab pickup a year. I mean, guys, you got to
But it's
admit,
also eBay style bidding.
you have to admit that would be more strategy.
I love how every rule we voted on, there would be strategy added. There's literally strategy with everything. Wait, can we go over your pitchers real quick, Griff?
Yeah, just all boring.
Yeah. But you weren't on here, obviously. We talked about you last time. Me and Kyle did with your offseason pitching. Are we kind of right? Are you trying to get just like a bunch of like the, oh, no, we're just dead wrong.
No,
All right.
so
Explain
I
it
was
to me then.
so I was listening and like it was like midnight, right?
And you were getting
Yeah.
angry, probably.
Oh yeah, I was mad because of the Cowser thing. Like as soon as I heard that, I like texted Nick.
Yeah,
like,
you were like, Nick, you're wrong
bastard.
about this.
Fuck you.
You were like, there's all these apparent text messages that we just didn't find. Interesting. Okay.
Well, yeah, then I edited it, so he didn't even see it. So we're good. We're good.
The next morning, it was just a period. And I clicked the edit. It was like,
You
down with the reign of Bucher. You're wrong about this, you asshole.
Well, at midnight, it was just like, a $6 stab to the heart. But
The hate was flowing through. I get it, man.
second, I was listening and like, so I went through and my average pitcher is like 32 years old, which is
Good.
like how old Garrett Cole is. And I was like, who wants 35-year-old Chris Bassett? Like, no one wants these guys, So I thought they were just pitchers I could get who could, all of them are probably going to be about average, various levels of injury concern. I'm just going to mid my way through the season with a boring pitching staff.
I think all of them are like, besides Chris Sale, unless Chris Sale's healthy, in which case you're probably going to get a billion wins on the Braves. Like of those first five, though, excuse me, you've got a bunch of guys who are probably going to be sneaky good quality start dudes. I mean, I don't think any of them are amazing values, but like you said, you just mid your way through it. And also, like, even though I do think pitching won't change as much as I think maybe everybody else does, I do think it'll be streamable stuff. We talked about that last episode. We don't have to do it again. I do think, though, like, you're giving yourself a pretty good base here. And I do think, whether you're admitting it or not, I would definitely try to trade a bunch of these guys or two or three of them in like July to somebody who's behind you in all the categories. Because someone who's like not starting as many SP30, SP32, SP18, SP25s is going to want to catch up in Ks and wins. You can artificially be ahead of them.
So
Yeah,
I
I mean-
think one other.
Go
Oh, you
ahead.
go ahead first.
No,
You
go ahead,
Bob.
Griffin.
Okay,
I-
I was gonna say one other thing with this strategy is in general I just take a horrible approach to pitching every single year. So like I do that. So this is a way to handcuff me that I can't get cute. I just need to start these 6 guys and not worry. And I kind of did that with my hitting. I always go starts and scrubs. Like last year I
Yeah.
got Soto, Ramirez, and probably someone else. And so this year I can't really go stars and scrubs. Like I just need a nice solid base so I don't mess anything up. So it's kind of like idiot proofing my team.
I mean, your offense is very much idiot proof, dude. I don't know. Like, even your non-stars are still really good players.
Yeah. I mean, I love Duran.
So does everybody right now, by the way, too. I feel like everything I listen to, it's like, Duran's good.
I love
And I'm always
Ozuna.
like, nah, Duran's bad.
I feel like I offered Durant to everyone and they're like, I don't want that guy.
You did. I thought he was bad then. Now I want him.
Well, I offered you Duran for Duran, but you said no. Duran.
But yeah, good job, Griff. I like your team. I think you made pretty rational thought processes or pretty rational decisions too.
Yeah, and I agree. Torres was someone he was exactly like Bregman and Randy, where just right on the value probably, but no
Yeah.
one wants him.
All right, let's do who's fifth. We've only got like 2 more that we declared as
Charlie.
of today.
It's Charlie.
Turner Brown.
Yeah, Cherney.
You know,
Noteworthy, I feel like looking at the first 4 and now Charlie too. Everybody's keeping a lot of guys. I think we've not always had people keep a lot of guys. I think everybody is probably on the same page. I think inflation's gonna be crazy in the auction.
Did we skip over Zach?
Zach
Oh, was
was
Zach 5? Yeah, was
I
Zach
think
5
Zach
or was
was
Charlie 5? I don't remember.
Charlie was 5.
Oh, my
And,
bad.
Okay.
let's see. Can I share? Oh wait, let me send you something. Can I share my screen?
The host disabled that.
I can I can try to edit the settings, but I feel
Here.
like
No, it's
Here,
fine.
let Nick go ahead and I'll text you the pics. The pic.
What? Okay. I don't know. I think Charlie made generally okay decisions. I don't know if I would have kept Ruiz. Obviously, I've already talked about it. I don't think catchers are quite as valuable as maybe they should be, just because I think there's gonna be a lot available. I think Naylor's great there. I think Gorman's fine. Berger's good. Bohm, fine. Story, interesting. Bellinger, Lowe, and Outman are great. Like, especially I do think outfield's gonna be a tough thing to fill, and he's got all of them at good value. Outman hurts, man, because that was one of my guys last year. It's good. It's gonna stay good. Pena though, I don't know if necessarily about that one. That's one that I'm a little bit curious where Charlie's at. Maybe he likes some more of the consensus. I don't know if I would have kept Pena personally, but it's fine. First pitchers, Nestor's similarly someone where I don't know. I probably would have thrown him back at 16, but Charlie may know pitching's at a premium and think he's worth keeping at that. It's probably in the same ballpark as what I was saying with Brendan for Rodon. You have all the even at 16, I think is fine. Eflin's awesome. He's like everybody's darling. He was really good last year. Braxton Garrett, fine. Logan Webb's awesome though. And Iglesias is a really good closer or reliever if he's not going to close. Set of guy, he'll probably be the closer though. So I think Charlie made pretty rational decisions. I think keeping a couple of those mid guys I've already mentioned, I might not have done all of them, but you're allowed to like him a little bit more than I do. I don't, and I looked at his cuts. I don't think he made any cuts either that I like thought were crazy. Where did you land, Griff? Did you get your picture out?
Yeah.
I'll
Kind
look
of
at my
like
phone.
sure whenever, but yeah, I agree. It's like it's a bunch of bombers, fits with his team name like
What the
Gorman.
fuck?
What?
The picture. Sorry,
Burger.
go ahead.
It's a lot of power first guys with some nice power speed guys mixed in. I feel like Josh Lowe is probably one of those guys who you could not trade for value right now because he's like a 1-year pop up, but he's only 26. Like he just went like 20.
And he was a
30.
former high
And-
prospect.
Yeah, but he just put up such good numbers last year. Like I don't know if Brendan would have traded for him with that like $6 strategy, but he's real solid. So
Well, he's older than like 23, so I don't think Brendan's interested.
yeah,
What do you think the Griff with like Kelber Ruiz, Pena, and then on the pitching side, Cortez?
Ruiz that I probably wouldn't have. I think Pena is fair at $11. It's probably pretty close, and he also needs speed.
Yeah.
So, he's what, like 25 also, so still room for him to grow. He looked so good when I kept him and then kind of went downhill. So
The crazy impressive part of Charlie's team too is Charlie's got a lot of his line filled out. So everybody he buys, he will be able to buy the play guys for. I think he has like $200 left. He only has to fill like 8 spots. So Charlie's gonna be in there with Raymond buying like Jose Ramirez for whatever it costs, basically. And joking aside, that's what I would do if I was Charlie's. I would probably pick like of the top like 10 guys available, Luis Castillo, whoever's out there, and pay close to whatever it takes to get a couple of them. What do you think, Kyle? Think that's like not right?
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to harp on a lot of the same guys. Like, I actually like a Pena kind of return to form this year, but at $11, I think it's unnecessary. You could probably get him for $3 or $4. Kind of like Charlie bought Javi Baez last year as a great buy, and it didn't end up working out, right? So you could have done the same, I think, with Pena this year. I love Gorman. I love Burger. I think it's just going to totally rake this year.
I feel like Burger's the Kyle guy because like the just kind of ball dated stuff.
I wanted to get Burger back. I emailed Charlie, and then Charlie said, "Nah, like I'll give him to you for Altuve," and I was like, "No, thank you."
Excellent.
So yeah, and then
wait, while you're doing that, I'm gonna pull up and I'm gonna say a text I have from Charlie because it made me think of something funny. Keep going.
I love Eflin as a keeper, and I love Webb, obviously. But I actually have an interesting take on Charlie's team. I agree with you, Nick. Like, he's only used $149.
Wow, even less.
Right?
Yeah, he has like 200 left.
He can go into the draft and pick anyone he wants. But here's my point: he's still gonna have money. Like, I actually don't understand keeping all of these guys because he could have more like $20 players, $30 players from the draft. Like, even if he pays up like $90 Ramirez, I don't know. I feel like he's kind of in between right now. He's not rebuilding. He doesn't have like the strongest offense or the strongest pitching unit. So I feel like he's doing kind of this middle ground. And I tried to highlight, like, there are a ton of guys I love on his team.
Yeah.
So nothing against him, but I do think it's this tough middle ground that Charlie's taking. So I think that's a bit of an issue, especially when you keep guys like, I would keep Naylor, but when you keep guys like Ruiz, I would not have kept him. When you keep guys like Pena at 11, I would not have kept him. Bohm is good, but even $13 is not cheap.
Yeah.
I just think it becomes a little bit more difficult when you have so many keepers.
especially if the other keepers are like, I think all the guys we do think make sense or a little bit of surplus value. None of them are like slam dunks where it's like this guy is a stud. They're just good players, and that's what you want to be the majority of your roster. Kind of like we were talking about with Griffin and Brennan. And I feel like I agree with you a lot. And also, even if you do have a lot of money left, doesn't mean you should necessarily overpay for like an SP4 or an SP5. I know I was saying pay whatever it takes to get Jose Ramirez, but for like the studs, I mean. And I think I would rather have the ability to get more of them and then again basically do the $1 player thing. That's probably my bias because like we were talking about, Griffin said there's scenarios where he would want to have like all $12 guys. Charlie kind of did that. He's probably paying about $12 per guy here. It's just like, is there a top 50 or top 40 player?
Webb is
Webb
right.
is really good, yeah. On the offense, is there any?
I mean, Bellinger could come back and have another.
Bellinger was last
but-
year. Bellinger was
yeah.
incredible last year. So
But
yeah, I think he needs to get some studs.
I feel like
Which he has
this,
the money to do.
I feel like this fits his build though. Like he likes to get a nice balanced team.
I think
So-
it's his AL only bias, joking aside, just because in that league it's so deep, it's two catcher, 10 teams for just the AL. It's very hard to get anybody worth a pulse. So he probably is feeling like he wants to maintain something everywhere. I
And
tried
I
to
feel
give him
like also-
Bregman.
Yeah,
And Bregman's good. I tried to give him Bregman. I said, hey, Charlie, would you be interested in a deal at all moving my Alex Bregman, $34 for any of your outfielders? I have a lot of quarter infielders and would be interested in trying to make a swap involving Bregman or maybe another one of them. If you think any of the three outfielders make sense on your end in a move. He said, I will look at it tomorrow and get back to you. I said, thanks. I appreciate that. No worries either way, but let me know before I declare. Then he texted me, I plan to keep Naylor, Bohm, Berger, and Noel V. Marte. So I have all of my corner positions filled. Even if I didn't have a positional problem, moving one of my OFers for Bergman at $34 would be a all caps no because of large salary differences.
So, okay, it's so interesting. So, I mean, Nick, in a vacuum, you don't have to say, but would you trade Bregman for Outman?
Yeah, I would have done
Okay.
one from front. I think I like Bregman better, obviously. I think he's better. But with where I was salary wise, I would have done it at 1-for-1 for any of the three.
I mean, I think Outman will play a lot because he's good on defense, but I'm cherry picking because I like Loeb more than Outman.
Yeah.
So Outman, if I were Charlie and I could get Bregman at $34 in exchange,
I thought it made
for-
so much sense.
I would do that if I were Charlie because my whole premise. So Griffin disagrees. My whole premise is you have to spend money somewhere, and this is not like one of those Ariel Cohen leagues where you want every single guy like at or below value, and you're
Yep.
just trying to create surplus. I don't think that's what this league is, and he's already achieved surplus. I think in a few different places,
And he's
he
got
can-
quarter infielders he likes too, but like in my mind, I have all these corner infielders. I talked about my own team, and I really want outfielders. I only have two outfielders. And I know he's only got three himself, but I do think him getting a guy who's like probably his best bat if he gets him, either him or Bellinger, would have been helpful.
Yeah, I would have done it. But
Griffin doesn't
maybe-
think so though.
I wouldn't
I'm
have.
interested.
Maybe I'm a dummy. What do you
I
think,
mean,
Griff?
because James Outman's like top 200-ish, top 175-ish, at the minimum. Versus, like, I think that's a no doubt keep in my mind. Like, I think every team across the league would keep Outman at $6 versus I think Bregman doesn't fit every team quite so much. So I think I would also take Outman, but it would make more sense given Charlie's like excess budget than most teams, but I still think I'd want Outman. But I also
Yeah.
love Outman. I love Outman. Like,
No, I do too. And maybe just replace Alman with like, I don't know, OF 32, who's the 156th guy off the board. And maybe it changes my mind too. But I just feel like I didn't even necessarily come at it from the sense of Charlie's got a lot of money. So I didn't look that closely at who he would probably keep and what money he'd have left. But looking at it again, I think it would have made so much sense for him. And if not Bregman, I don't know. So someone like Bregman, maybe your Gleyber Torres or Kyle's Randy Rosarena.
he didn't
Or,
want my
dude,
Torres.
or Brendan's Jose Ramirez.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do with Charlie. I was trying to trade him a couple of my expensive players intentionally, like knowing that they're not a surplus because I thought he'd want to spend money somewhere. And he was similar. Like he said, no, I don't.
And
like
I'm not
that."
being dramatic. The text, it was no was in all caps. Nothing else was
Yeah.
to make sure I got the message. But all right. So Charlie is definitely doing a little bit of a different thing than I feel like we generally do, which is completely fine. But it's not what I would do necessarily. We'll see if it works out for him. Let's do Zach.
Real quick, can we stall for like 2 seconds? I just want to see
Yeah.
Like, did Charlie get anyone expensive in the last draft? I like almost have it up if you want
That's a
to
good question.
call
Yeah.
for 30 seconds.
I kind of think he probably didn't. I feel like Charlie does the what Kyle said, like aerial call. I think because of the AL only league, he really wants to make sure. Just I think his bias is to have every spot be at or around value, and have
Yeah.
no glaring weaknesses.
Yep.
So he had one player over $30, and that was Aaron Judge, who he kept.
Mm.
Everyone else was under $30. Like he had Torres 25, Rizzo 24, Real Muto 23, Buxton 26.
Same guys basically too. Not the same players, of course, but like the same archetype of like guys where all of those ones you just named are like I think he's getting a little bit of value with most of them, but like none of them are overly expensive, and none are probably like besides Judge. I guess Real Muto might have been like top like 50 players, top 60 players.
Yeah, I think he likes to live in that like 80 to 140 range of like
Good, but not
very
great.
solid, very few question marks.
I mean, obviously too. Even we say pitchers get hurt a lot, and they do. I do think there's something to be said for the fact that when you have that build, like 1 or 2 injuries are just not going to kill you the way that like if Freddie Freeman goes down for Kyle and Betts go down, like that's really bad. Or if
What?
Acuna,
Don't say that.
No,
no, no,
or
no,
Acuna.
no.
But my point is like when we're top heavy, we
Yeah.
can fall over pretty easily.
Well, Nick, if your players get hurt, it's not fair. Griffin, do you remember when that came up during the winter meetings?
No.
Well, guys,
Oh,
if
yeah.
all of your best players get hurt, then you're not going to be good. It's not fair.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, that's very
that's
true.
literally how a
Yeah.
game works. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
But
I mean,
now-
you're right. Like that's obviously a disadvantage to being top heavy, but the advantage is if they play like they're supposed to, you might win.
You might win. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they don't, you won't win.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at Zach here. Griffin, you're the big Zach guy. What do you think here?
So I think, he has the two top players in Witt and Ellie. Like you have number 2 overall. You have like a second round, like total, probably the most divisive player in fantasy, right? In Ellie.
Tantalizing upside, but yeah, so much range of outcome there.
And then I think just nice solid team, like has speed from a couple different places. Does Riley Green steal bases? I feel like Green,
Yeah.
Harris,
He
Thomas.
is like chip and speed, yeah. It may be more than 9, I would have guessed too. I feel like he's like a 10 to 15 guy.
I would take the over on this.
Yeah, Michael Harris is great too.
I also feel like Green might be like a post type sleeper type where it's like, he didn't come in and kill it, but he's still like very solid and he still does have upside. Lane
Last
Thompson,
year the Harris for Trout trade was Charlie and Zach, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Charlie, what the fuck?
That's because Charlie's a bulldog. He's just got to go for it.
Yeah, Charlie, you're
That's-
supposed to like
every
these
year
$11 guys. What happened?
Maybe it's because Harris is in the NL.
Yeah.
Probably. I like Lane Thomas. I feel like I tried to get Lane Thomas from him, but didn't
I
work.
love Justin Turner. That's my kind of archetype.
I was surprised he kept Justin Turner, but I feel like
11's pricey.
solid, he's going to be the DH. He's going to get full playing time. Just nice, solid contributions.
I think that ADP is also like super artificially low just because he wasn't signed until very recently. Like I think he's way better than that.
Yeah, like compare him to mine, Nate Lowe for $16, and I think they're like.
I think they're the same guy
similar
basically.
player.
Yeah. I mean they'll get there differently, but I think they have similar value. That's a great comp for him.
And he's someone who no one would give any value for him. So it's like keep him, you like him.
I love Jordan Walker too. Obviously I had him last year. Jordan Walker, like these are guys who are like they're cheaper now than they were a year or two ago. But there's like one prospects break out. I feel like I think Jordan Walker's gonna have a really good year.
Yeah, him and Green could both be like post type in that way.
I feel really bad for Zach too, looking at the pictures, just because like the same way I lost McClanahan out of nowhere last year, and he's not even on my team anymore. Same deal with Woodruff for Zach, who is like also a bulldog, like top 10 to 15 starting pitcher. I feel for you with that, Zach. But you still have a pretty good pitching staff even without him. Good base.
I love George Kirby. Like,
Yeah.
I love him so much. Hot take, like I think he could be like the best pitcher in the league. I think he's so good, so safe.
I think he's like probably the least likely of almost any not top like 4 or 5 pitcher to finish outside the top like 20. Like I don't think he has very many bust cases is what I'm trying to get to. I don't think he's ever gonna strike out enough guys probably to be like actually SP like 3 or 4 or above. But yeah, I agree with you. He's very safe.
He'll
And
help
Seattle's
your
a good team.
ratios. Yeah.
And like Peralta is super not safe. I feel like in that range of pitcher, Peralta is pretty unsafe. So it is kind of nice to have Keller and Peralta as like your upside plays, and then Kirby is like just safe 26-year-old, like guaranteed plug and play ace.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I don't have much more to add. I think Zach made good decisions though. There was no one Zach cut that I wouldn't have cut. Will Smith is like every catcher. I'm not sure necessarily, but he's one of the ones that if you want the guy hitting fourth in the Dodgers lineup, I get it. $20 is a lot, but it's worth it.
I think didn't Jung just get hurt?
I think
Oh,
Young's still showing hurt from before, or he's hurt again.
I think he got hurt in spring training.
Oh,
jeez.
wow. Okay, sorry, I haven't seen that. That happened just recently here. That happened on Saturday. That happened yesterday. Okay.
I didn't know that either.
So
That's
that might also
unfortunate.
be why he kept Turner then to, if Jung does start on the Young starts
Smart.
on the IL, then you have Turner to plug in. So
Good call.
Well, I
Damn.
don't think he knew about Young when he kept Turner, right?
well, I think it did. I think that it might have been a formal diagnosis recently, but I think he
Oh.
was like announced.
It
that-
happened prior to that, maybe.
Oh, gotcha.
don't
I,
remember for
I,
sure,
I didn't
but-
realize that.
Well, and Young missed time last year too. So even if maybe you were concerned he might be an injury risk. Texas is like a beefed up version of the Reds too, where it's one of the best 3 or 4 offenses in baseball probably. But similar, they like the Duran, they have a lot of good but not great players in the second half of the lineup that like if one of them gets off to a poor start, might not get every day at bats.
Just looking at this team, like I really do like how it is young. There's a lot of young. There's like a lot of upside in it. But you also have like a lot of stability in Castellanos.
Yeah, Castellanos, Justin Turner, Will Smith.
Like I don't
He's
think
gonna
there's much
compete.
downside, but there's upside. So
How much money does Zach have left, real quick, before we move off of him? So
Oh,
he's
wow.
still got almost half his budget left too to get a couple big boopers and then fill out the rest of the team. I like that, Zach. You're in a good spot, man. We have Brad also, or is anyone else declared?
yeah, so I did some investigative journaling and I messaged Brad to get his keepers. So
Okay, good.
so
We got 5 minutes to decide if we like him.
So these are his keepers. He was on the fence about Jordan Montgomery,
Mm,
so we can actually discuss that.
Oh,
But
well,
there's a lot to discuss here.
I wouldn't keep him.
would you, Nick?
Jordan Montgomery, I think I actually would lean probably, yeah. But
Wow.
I
I
would-
think it's defensively either way. I'm surprised at how definitively you say no, Kyle. I think he's probably going to sign somewhere, and he was really good last year. Are you concerned he hasn't signed yet? Are you concerned because like you don't think he's worth it no matter where he signs, or
I mean, if he signs for a great team, then maybe he'd be worth it. But I feel like I could just find better value cheaper.
to me he's like probably like SP like 25 to 30-ish, maybe higher. And if he signs with like a really good team, then I probably would because you add wins to it, bump him up to like low SP2, mid SP2.
I
I
feel like
think
he's a
he's
must-
very safe.
That's what I like about him. Like I like that safe pitcher. He's probably being drafted around like Bryce Miller, maybe. I don't know for sure, but like in that range, like he's just going to be a safe innings eater who you don't really have to question all year. So
I mean,
And I think he's also
if
or
he
sorry, go
signed
ahead.
if he signed with Baltimore, I feel like especially like being kind of like a homer league, like 21 would be a great deal. But if he signed with like the Angels, I would not like that.
so
I think
that's
it's like we might just disagree on his value too. I think you might just like Montgomery less than I do.
Maybe.
so to add some color. I think he was also on the fence leaning no, but I think the Bradish injury like kind of helped decide for him to.
That's so unfortunate, man. Even like put Baltimore
Yeah.
aside, I love Bradish. So like especially as
solid.
a Bradish guy, you know,
And Brad
being
is
on
Bradish.
Team Brad, like it's just the perfect player, and so it's really unfortunate.
It's
I'm
like if
sorry, Brad.
Kyle was sort of Bradish.
I know, like it's like our little love child.
Yeah, dude. Kyle like a little twisted Brad. Would you have kept Tiedemann and Carson Williams? One or both of them?
I would not.
I think you can make a case for Tiedemann. I probably wouldn't have kept Carson Williams. I'm
I
not
feel
sure I
like-
would have kept Tiedemann either, though.
I feel like
I
there's,
wouldn't have, but
there's-
that's my build. So
I would say no on both.
I think I lean no on both too. But I do think you could defend the Tiedemann one. with the hitters, anything here you guys are super taken by? I'm a little bit surprised he kept Rogers, but I don't know. He likes Rogers, I guess.
He also traded for him. I think Santander is the most.
Oh yeah, good
impressive
memory.
name.
Santander, I almost did Santander for Bregman if I wanted to do it. I want outfielders, and Bregman's I think a little bit better, but Santander's an Oriole, and also like an outfielder.
And
I
the
don't
team's
think-
getting a lot better around him, but
I don't think it's egregious, but I think $33 is a little bit more than I'd want to spend.
What about
much
Neto
money?
and Westberg?
I
I
like
didn't
it.
think I would have. But
I think I would have
Both
picked one of them probably personally. I don't know if I'd keep both.
I don't know. I think you can just take your guys. He probably likes Westberg.
Yeah.
I think Neto's pretty good.
Dude, he's in the right spot. They look at third base and corner fields are open. You're getting Jose Ramirez, Brad. Or you should go after him at least. If he
Yeah.
goes over 100, probably not. But if he's at like 80 again, I would be interested if I were Brad. He would really help Brad out because I think you're missing probably basically just that besides Julio. Like the true like top 20 hitter. Or actually, Matt, I just skipped over Matt Olson, who's also incredible.
and Julio. But
Brad's
like,
got some really excellent pieces here.
Yeah, this is why like I like Brad's team better than like Charlie's team as it stands right now because it gives you more flexibility. If you just get one or two pieces, you already have so many top 50 players in Matt Olson, Julio. Like even though Santander might be a little more expensive than I like great power, like really good outfielder. I don't know. I
would put Brad's 1-2 against like almost anybody's with those two of Julio and Matt Olson. It's up there with like yours, Betts, and Freeman.
Brad is just such a tough hit because like I feel like low key he could have been a solid like SP1 and then just like have good backup guys like rounding out your rotation, but it's such a tough blow. So sorry. Brad,
you really hope he comes back.
Yeah.
I feel like Gavin Williams is going to increase in value so much just once he gets a photo. Because like I just skip over that spot because there's no photo, and it's like, wait, he's like a top 40 SP who's like young, but since he doesn't have a photo, I totally miss him.
I feel like it's the same thing with Montgomery though. It's the same thing with Justin Turner, where I feel like when they're not signed, even if they're good players, they drop more than they should, like value wise. I know Kyle's not doing that. I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I think you just like him less than I do profile wise, but I feel like that does like impact where they are ranked and like how they look. Yeah, good job, Brad. Generally, we have not had anything yet where we think it's egregious, though, right? Like I know we had Dom has brought up like when he was on last time, we were kind of critical of like Mike Soroka and some of those guys. I don't think we have any egregious picks this year that I'm like, so far, why are you doing that?
Yeah, I think what surprised me more is some of the players who've been dropped. There've been a couple of drops where I'm like, dang, I hope Ray isn't paying attention and keeps Corbin over these guys.
Yeah, hopefully he's not paying attention at all.